SolidWorks 2008 introduces some radical new tools for creating and editing and modifying geometry. Let's take a look at some of these new tools along with some of the new capabilities to reuse existing geometry. First thing we're going to do is we want to take a look at SolidWorks Search. SolidWorks Search has been around in previous versions of SolidWorks, but in this case here I'm going to take a look at how we can use it going forward in 2008. Just typing in pivot, SolidWorks goes off and does a search and comes up with various components that I have either on my disk or maybe in 3D Content Central. If I want to search by just SolidWorks part documents, I can, or assembly documents. Here's the part that I want to be able to reuse some information from, this little lobe on the underside here. You can see the part number is this. It has a description of pivot arms, so you can see it went into the actual description of that part. Now in previous versions I would have to open this file up and maybe go get that feature or sketch and then reuse it into this new part that I'm working on. But 2008 introduces the concept of dissection. So here I'm just going to double click on the file and it takes me into all the features for this part here. This feature here, if I double click on it, it takes me into the sketch, and that's what I want to reuse, so I'll just drag it and drop it into my design. Now some of the great new tools for the new user interface for SolidWorks is to have a real nice heads-up display of commonly used commands like turning off planes there. Now watch as my mouse moves around on the screen. It actually doesn't move very far throughout this whole creation of this part here. Double-clicking on the sketch takes me right into the sketch, so I have easy access to editing that sketch. Double-clicking in space will take me right out of the sketch. So again, you can see very little mouse travel, allowing me to focus exactly on what I'm going to work on. By choosing the sketch, you see I get this arrow, and I can take this arrow and drag it in either direction and start adding the geometry. Holding down the M key gives me a mid-plane extrusion, so I can extrude that about the mid-plane. Just by selecting a face, I have commonly used commands. In this case here, we're going to access a sketch, and then access a corner rectangle here, one of the new rectangle tools for SolidWorks 2008. And we'll quickly add a dimension. Again, watch the mouse travel. I barely have to move my mouse much in doing this and building this entire part here. Again, we'll grab this sketch here, drag it here. We can add material, or if we drag it in the other direction, we actually remove material. On this face here, we're going to go ahead and create another sketch, and here we'll just drop on a circle and add some sketch relationships as we go. And then just take this and drag it in either direction to add material here, and we'll bring it out somewhere in that range there. I'm going to add a fillet. Go ahead and accept that, and you can see I've got a pretty close shot at what my part's going to look like here. One of the nice things about some of the new modifying and editing tools is I can simply just grab on this fillet here and start resizing. You can see it's solving that fillet real time on the screen. Once I'm done, if I want to key in a value of 5, I just key that in, and SolidWorks will change the geometry to match that. What happens if I want to make some other edits? Maybe I want this thing to be a little bit wider. Simply dragging it wider, you can see that it not only is going to make that first boss a little bit wider, but it's also moving the circle. The circle is constrained to it as well, and resolving all those fillets as we go. Grabbing dimensions, you can see I can make my entire lobes there longer. Maybe we'll bring these down to about 90, something like that. And then maybe we want to come over here and drag on this, bring it out here a little bit longer. Notice the nice scales that we have, allowing you to get hard dimensions as opposed to just various dimensions that are out there in space. Next thing we want to do is we want to add another boss for allow this thing to pivot. So we'll just draw in a circle down here and bring that out like this, and we'll go ahead and extrude that, give it some thickness. If we want to reuse a feature in SolidWorks, it's as simple as a drag and drop, and I'm able to reuse. Maybe we want that fillet to be a little bit smaller. That's not a problem. Key in 3, and we now have a 3mm fillet on that pivot boss there. I want it to be a little bit longer. Certainly. What happens if I want it to be shorter, or what happens if I want to turn it into a hole? SolidWorks allows me to take this boss and actually turn it into a hole as I go. Everything's just a simple click away, so I can edit this feature. We can add this other one on the other side to that as well. And you can see we have a very good start on our model here. Again, as I do this, I can continue to resize my model, make it a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, whatever I need to do to suit my needs. Let's talk about reuse again. Let's go back up to our search window, and we'll just do a search for something called hub here. Again, I got 4 part documents, an assembly document. This is the hub I want to use. Again, I don't remember that part number, but I do remember it had hub in the description. So I double click that. Again, it takes me into the dissected information for this feature. Before we reused a sketch. This time I'm just going to reuse this feature and drag it and drop it onto that face there. You can see it creates a through wall cut so that no matter how I move this end of my part out, it's going to always remember that that's through wall. And at this point, maybe I might just want to tighten up my design, again, to try to remove material that isn't needed for this design and come up with a much better product for what I'm trying to do. We'll go ahead and shorten this up, and you can see how great SolidWorks is going to be for building part geometry going forward in SolidWorks 2008. For SolidWorks 2008, we've introduced many new features for modifying your designs and coming up with better products. In this case here, we want to reduce the weight of our little pump housing here. So one of the things we can do is we can simply just grab on some of these features and just move them around on the screen. Maybe move this guy back here a little bit. And you can see we have real-time editing as we continue to modify our designs. In order to get a screw in there, we might need to rotate these over. It's still kind of small. Maybe what we want to do is just turn the way this particular item here is oriented onto our design. So we'll just rotate that maybe 270 degrees. You can see how that then updates and moves around. Now we have a little bit better ways in which to assemble those screws there. Slide this boss back a little bit. Maybe we want to shorten this overall boss here, so we can just grab on some of these faces and tug them down, make them a little bit shorter. Maybe instead of these features here being or a boss there, we can maybe counter bore those in or give a little spot face in that area. You can see we're turning a boss into a cut in doing so, and it automatically inverts that fillet. One of the other great new tools is the ability to do a live section. What this does is it gives me a window into my part by cutting a cross section of my design. Here we couldn't even see that we had a little O-ring groove in here, or seal groove there. Here maybe we'll try to just slide this feature back, this clamping flange here. Notice as I slide it all the way back, you can see the material in this area is starting to disappear, and those two features are actually merging together. Maybe we'll shorten up the overall size of our part here by dragging this around. You can see our weight is starting to come down. We're going to get a much more usable part here. Now, not only are we able to work with all of our features while we're in this live section mode or drag things around, but we're also able to just resize features as well. So we still have access to all those features. In fact, we can even model while we're in this environment here. So here we'll just put a 2mm chamfer on a couple of these edges here. Nice preview SolidWorks gives me on creation of that item there. And you can see it even updates my cross section as I do that, adding that chamfer. So you can see some great new tools for coming up with better designs in SolidWorks 2008.
Here's a quick demonstration that shows a lot of the enhancements to the feature-driven component patterns in SolidWorks 2008. Now I can actually use curve-driven patterns like these curve-driven patterned holes to define the locations of all the cap screws. I can actually put a cap screw or a component in every location of an area fill pattern like I'm doing here. You can see how fast SolidWorks responds with the correct locations. The intelligence of SolidWorks even goes a little further. Here you can see I have 4 holes. They were not defined with a rectangular pattern. It's simply a multi-hole location, one whole wizard feature with 4 locations. And as you can see, SolidWorks still puts the screws in the correct position. SolidWorks 2008 has tremendous productivity tools, and one of the biggest time savers in the assembly environment is the copy with mates command. Here's a common problem. You have a component or multiple components like a bolt and washer that you'd like to reuse throughout the entire assembly. Now, we could copy the bolt and washer and manually define their mates, or how about copy with mates? And here we have the ability to repeat a mate like a coincident mate and redefine mates like this concentric mate. Now, since I want to use this bolt and washer on a different bracket, I'll redefine both mates, the coincident and the concentric mate. It's easy to see the benefit of this command. Not only am I rapidly copying the bolt and washer throughout my entire assembly, but every time the bolt and washer are being used, the mates are very consistent. It adds a level of consistency throughout my model. What a great command. This is just another example of some great innovative tool sets within SolidWorks 2008.